Hey everybody, welcome to the Good News Bay podcast. We are so excited for this very first podcast. I'm excited in just a moment to introduce our very first guest, but please know the purpose of the podcast is to make Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. We want to change the conversation. We want to talk about things that are true, that are good, that are happening, and that are happening locally. And so I'm looking forward to interviewing some very special folks in the coming weeks and months. They can give us an update on where things are and some amazing things that have been happening. Our very first guest is going to be General Mark McQueen, and we are so blessed to have him with us. I want to give him a little bio about you as we begin. He, since 2018, September of 2018, has been the city manager of Panama City. That came right at a time that you were retiring from the military, 36 years in military service. And then I think you had just enough time to donate a kidney to someone, and we're healing up from that at about the time that you started in September of 2018, and then we had this hurricane named Michael.
This is true.
And so before we fast forward and get into what that looks like, I think some of what I want people to be able to see and know about you is that in addition to the military service, you moved to Panama City, if I got this right, in 1988.
Mm-hmm. I did.
And so it's not like you just moved here a few weeks ago.
Right.
And so you know and love the area. You're married to Karen.
I am.
And have been a little bit.
A long
time. And you've got two grown children, Thomas
That's
and
right.
Taylor.
That's correct.
Taylor just finished a double master's degree
at New Orleans
Seminary.
Yep.
And she's involved with children's ministry in a church in Opelika.
First Baptist Church, Opelika. She's the associate youth minister there.
That's awesome.
Middle school, high school girls. Very targeted population.
Well, some of our young adults know her and love her and think the world of her, and I'm sure she's doing a great job. I also know that Thomas is excited. Thomas is working with Bay County Law Enforcement, Sheriff's Department. Mm-hmm. He recently got married to Natalie. And there is a grandchild expected this summer.
Coming to a theater near us soon.
Now, I'm going to warn you, I've not experienced this yet. My kids aren't quite there, but I've been told it changes your life in a way that you can't ever expect.
I'm looking forward to finding out. That's
it's coming.
Learning.
It's coming. Right. I think one of the things that I want to point out, and I really got an opportunity, I've done some homework on you. I've read several articles, some national stuff, and I knew you were almost overqualified for the role that we've been blessed to have you with. I knew that as I talked to local leaders as they brought you on, how ecstatic the folks of Panama City were to have you in that role even before the hurricane hit. Not being, my dad served in Air Force, but I don't have a ton of military background. But when I think about what your preparation has been for this role that you're in currently, helping rebuild Bay County, or particularly Panama City, and I look back at the military career, realizing, these are things that I remember like years back hearing. Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, you're a veteran of. You're a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom in Iraq, Operation Joint Endeavor in Bosnia. There's a whole list of medals and awards, and I don't even know that I can pronounce all those right. Yeah. The point is, you've got a distinctive career in the military, going from, I guess, an officer all the way to a 2-star general. Your last command when you retired was based out of North Carolina, and you were over like 8,000 troops, right?
That's correct.
Part of your experience, is this correct? Part of your experience was rebuilding infrastructure in war-torn areas.
That's exactly right.
And so those of you that have been around Panama City that are listeners, you may already know this. Those of you that have not been may not, but we heard a lot of comparisons after the storm to a war-torn area. Mm-hmm. You've laid eyes on that before. And I know that I was among many that was very grateful that you were in charge on the Panama City side at that point, because so much has had to be rebuilt. I'm going to be quiet in just a minute, but there's one more thing I want to get in before we get into some of the nuts and bolts, and I think it's a personal touch that I can add. Before taking that role, you also for a number of years were a business administrator at First Baptist Church Panama City.
That's right.
And to me that speaks volumes in a number of ways. I can't believe I'm saying this publicly, but I'm going to tell you this. Your reputation is one for detail. It's one for making tough decisions when they're needed. It's one for having having enough processes and procedures in place to protect the organization. And I say that in the most positive of ways, knowing that as a city manager, that matters. And, I am a pastor, right? But and you've been a pastor as well. I know that pastors don't always have the best reputation for integrity, but I'm going to say this publicly, that you, for everything I know, are that guy. And we live in a community that needs integrity right now. We need to be able to believe in the leaders that we have, and that, one, they know what to do, they're competent, and two, that they're going to do the right thing. And so I'm complimenting you on the front end. Maybe that makes you feel comfortable and you'll open up a little. But in light of all that, New Year's Day this year, I'm fast forwarding, I believe it was New Year's Day, you went to the hospital.
I did.
And you were in ICU basically the whole time you were there, till January 13th. And you contracted COVID, right?
I did.
And you fought. Tell me a little bit about that. You were a pretty sick puppy.
I was a really sick puppy. I sure was. Thanks, first of all, to that introduction. It's just a journey, following God's path for my life and purpose-driven life. And you never know what God is doing in your life at that moment, not only for what you're doing at that time, but preparing you for things that you don't even know that are going to be coming down the road. And certainly share a little bit about that. But certainly, I'm really blessed to be here today. And I say that definitively because, I did get COVID, and it hit me pretty hard. I was hospitalized, as you said, but it actually started on Christmas Day, but I was eventually hospitalized on the 1st. Wow. And didn't get out to the 13th, and it took me another 6-8 weeks to fully recover. And I feel like I'm essentially fully recovered now. But, I can remember vividly on the 6th of January, I was crashing. My respiratory was going in total distress. The medical team at Sacred Heart, Bay Medical, Ascension Sacred Heart, did a phenomenal job. It's hats off to them for all that they did. But I can remember vividly at a moment in time where I was asking God, is this it? Am I about to take my final breath here on earth and step into eternity and rejoice at being at the foot of Jesus and celebrating for eternity? No downside to that. None. But I also said, God, I thought you had more for me. I thought you put me in here in this purpose of life to do the things you've asked me to do currently as a city manager, right, having a family, seeing my kids get married, grandkids, all of those things that you kind of expect.
Right.
And I said, I don't know what your plan is for me, but here am I. Send me. I just submit myself to you. Because I was literally at that threshold of, is this literally my last breath on earth?
So you're saying that, and this was January 6th,
January
that you
6th.
Literally were going through the thought processes of, is this it? What does it look like? Is my faith going to sustain me? That's incredible.
Yep. And every breath from that prayer forward was laborsome, was difficult, was full, was complete, was conscious, thinking about how to breathe. This past weekend I was in church, and it was a song that we were singing, and part of the chorus was, every breath from God is a gift. Holy cow. New relevance in my life.
Wow.
The message that those words have. Every breath is a gift from God. And it was that day on the 6th, and after that really intense time that I just prayed to God, was laborsome, difficult, and repeat. Laborsome, difficult, repeat. Mm-hmm. And every breath was one step forward to whatever God was calling me to do. And took a few days to start seeing some progress, because it was every breath, very difficult, repeat. But after about 3 days, you could start seeing there was a turn. I am here today because of the grace of God. And certainly he ministered through medical ministry with all of the medical professionals that poured themselves into me.
You have been very complimentary publicly about the medical care that you got, and I thought it was worth pointing out since we're talking about good news in Panama City. It was at Bay Medical or Ascension Health. Is that where your
That's
stay
right.
was?
Yep, it was. It sure was. And the Gulf Coast medical team, equally great. I'm not saying one hospital over the other. We are blessed in this community to have such robust medical capacity, and that's one of the great things about our community. But I have been a recipient of the incredible care that has been issued to me, not only in COVID, but there was another incident that I had where I was taking an Army PT test, and I had just returned from Europe where I had apparently contracted some kind of pretty wicked virus, and was doing the PT test and was just about a couple hundred feet from the finish line and collapsed and faded to black. Got back up, went some more, collapsed, did a low crawl, tried to get my wits about me, finally collapsed across the finish line, and that's the last thing I remember until about 45 minutes, an hour later, when I am being awakened in the hospital, again, Bay Medical at that time, and Dr. Frank Merritt, an incredible man of faith, I awoke to both he and my wife praying over me at that time. So yeah, I've been on some rough journeys, and but God has a purpose. God has a purpose.
Well, one of the things that I learned new, even just in the last couple of weeks, as we've been trying, or probably a few days, we've been trying to get things scheduled. You know, when I saw you last publicly, it was one of your first days out of the house after COVID, and you were visibly thankful to be alive. You were visibly weaker than when I had last seen you. But then as I've seen a little bit of your schedule, you're back at it hard and heavy now, are you not? I mean, you're working long days, best I can tell.
Yeah, I work half days, usually 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 or 7 p.m.
Right. Half 12 to 14 hour days.
That's exactly right. This is all good.
I wanted one of the things I really was excited about was an opportunity perhaps to do what you haven't before, or maybe you have, but many people were praying for you. Many people were rooting for you within the community, within churches. I mean, you were on prayer lists galore.
Around the world.
Well, and I know how excited you were that people were praying, and I know how much that strengthened you. Did you want to convey that for a second?
Well, thank you. And the faithful saints that uplifted my name in prayer. I mean, how humbling when people you don't even know, are uplifting your name to God for intercessory prayer. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And it wasn't just close friends and families. It was people I will never meet in my entire life ever again. Don't know who they are. Nope. But I know churches literally around the world, missionaries around the world, friends of faith around the world uplifting my name in prayer. And, I am a walking testament to the power of prayer, and that God hears that. Where two or more are gathered together, man, it was 2,000 or 3,000 more gathered together, calling. And
awesome.
I'm blessed.
Well, I'm ecstatic to see you strong and back at it. Obviously, now you're living you feel like you got a life of purpose. Not that you didn't before, but you're back at it. I would love for us to just talk a little bit about where things are, because even as a community, hopefully we're kind of coming out of COVID, or at least on the back part of that. I know some things got slowed down process-wise of the rebuild and that kind of thing. A lot of our listeners probably have not read, but I've read a little bit of what's available online about the process. Tell us just kind of where we are in that phase at this point.
Yeah, so it's been interesting, when you see a disaster that takes place, whether it's a war-torn country or a recovery from a Category 5 storm, there are certain deliberate phases of recovery. And certainly in our community, we had the shock and awe, if you will, of what took place in that 4-hour intense hunkered down storm that everybody endured together. We all emerged from that seeing different things, and we started the calamity, the chaos, the disaster, the destruction. Nothing was left untouched, right? In any community from Hathaway Bridge essentially all the way to Mexico Beach and all the neighbors in between. So, we've been going through the phases of recovery, and it's been difficult to be sure. It's hard for us to believe that we removed 40 years of debris in 18 months.
Right.
That was incredible. It's hard for me to believe that at one point we had 5,500 children that were technically homeless in this community for an extended period of time as they're also going to school. It's hard for me to believe at the same time we had another chaos that befell this community, and that was the pandemic that occurred. And oh, by the way, don't forget that we got a brush with Hurricane Sally that had damage to our community. I mean, the community has, and when I say community, it's Bay County, all of its citizens. It's not just Panama City. We're all in this together.
We're in it together.
This is the great melting pot of a community, and it's amazing that we saw neighbors helping neighbors, that it's communities helping communities. We all want to rise up together, and I'm confident that we can. One of the things I learned in my military career, and I was in a unique component of the military career in my military career, that's part of the Army Special Operations that dealt with rebuilding countries. It was foundationally built off of the Marshall Plan, that whole component of the Army. It's the only part of the Army that goes in there and rebuilds. Everything else is designed to destroy. And this actually goes in and rebuilds governments, rebuilds countries, provides humanitarian assistance operations. So I've had a lot of experience in that, and certainly those skills, again, you never know doing that in Bosnia or in Afghanistan or in Iraq, that those experiences will serve you even in your home later on, years down the road. And so, for me, it was really an opportunity for us to just chart a new course and direction, to share with our citizens that we haven't been forgotten. God is still faithful in chaos.
Yep.
And he actually is seen maybe even more gloriously through chaos, because that which people cannot do, God can do. And we have seen incredible things take place that we can only give all the attributes or accolades to God for. But we're for governance, in my estimation, I think good governance, you have to earn the trust and confidence of the citizens. Just like we take up our cross daily, I have to earn the trust and confidence of our citizens. Additionally, I think when you look at good governance, I call it the 4 P's of good governance, and it's policies and programs and process and procedure. And those things help to guide how we're doing our recovery. And then you have to have a vision. Where there is no vision, the people perish.
That's what
right?
Scripture says.
Scripture says it.
It says it.
That's not an original quote from me.
No,
you know where I'm coming from on that.
book.
That's right. And, but God says that. And so in the recovery effort, just praying through that and seeking God's guidance and direction and wisdom, I was just really burdened with Nehemiah and how Nehemiah went about rebuilding the wall. Yeah. And what did he do? And how did he do it? And how quickly was the wall done? And how much excellence was that done with? Because the people came together.
Yep.
And did that. And there was a process. He had to go to the king and ask for money and resources. And we're kind of having to do that. We had to go to the bank, and we had to go to the federal government. We had to go to the state government. And we even had to go to the people to help fund how this recovery was going to take place. And then you had to elicit citizens to be a part of this vision for the future.
Yeah, I had to believe in it, see the vision.
That's right, they see the vision, that to become the premier city in the Panhandle of Florida. As you mentioned in the introduction, I've been here for over 30 years, and I feel like our community has untapped potential.
Right.
And now, because of the disaster and calamity called Hurricane Michael, we actually have an opportunity to go a new direction, and fundamentally, that's what we're striving to do.
I know that early on, we all, I think, many of the key leaders at least, were aware that we were only going to get one shot to rebuild at a time when many of the basic foundational pieces were laying kind of in rubble. And so it gave us a chance to start fresh. And I know that when we were trying to keep morale high early on, we talked about how amazing things were going to be when they did get put back together. I mean, a lot of us still miss the trees, and we're still seeing some that are still a bit crooked or whatever, but we made so much progress. And in light of that, I know one of the big things that I've heard a lot of buzz about in the last couple of weeks is the groundbreaking of the Indigo Hotel. And I know that I'm of the impression that that's a beginning point in some ways of a number of other developments. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for the downtown area?
Yeah, that is yet another significant milestone in the recovery effort of the city of Panama City specifically. And we have our vision to be the premier city in the Panhandle of Florida. We are focusing on 4 lines of effort, 4 specific areas, and that's safety and security. That's for people, property, and the environment. Number 2, we're focusing on our infrastructure, the key and vital infrastructure that sustains us. Number 3, we're focusing on the economy, making more robust and resilient the economy. And number 4 is quality of life. And that is what enriches our lives. The arts, the history, the culture, the walking paths, the livability, and all of those things that knit us together. Right?
Sure.
It's been years in the making to try to find out what the purpose of the downtown marina would be, and clearly we were able to negotiate with St. Joe. They approached the city and said they see the vision, they see the city's commitment toward this vision, they see the citizens, probably even more importantly, the citizens' commitment to this new vision, because it's been a citizen-driven process. Again, Nehemiah, right, getting all the citizens involved, and so with that, they are stepping forward very boldly with a $36 million investment on a new hotel and a restaurant, which we hope will become the catalyst for more investment. Certainly, we've seen an incredible transformation in the historic downtown of Panama City.
There's been a lot down there.
And what's taken place, there's new life. I mean, it's hard to believe, but just 2 years ago, you could stand in the middle of Harrison Avenue. It was ghost town. I mean, I've got pictures of not a single vehicle on Harrison Avenue. Now, people are starting to complain about parking. That's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem. There's no doubt that as we've seen new restaurants and businesses open, there's a number, and I don't have the number. It seems like we're almost like 170 some odd businesses.
New businesses in the city.
Beyond what we had before.
That's correct.
And so we're seeing new restaurants and all kind of little shops. I think we've seen some of those both in downtown, also in the St. Andrews area. And so for people that are new to Panama City, and we got a lot of new people coming to Panama City, and the Bay County area in general, but if you hadn't been to the downtown area and the St. Andrews area, you really need to go down there and look at some of what's there, because there's a whole lot more life there than there has been. That's a picture of that quality of life. And another good news piece to that is the excitement.
Yep.
I mean, none of it happens easy, and there's always differing opinions, but there's an excitement even among the business people that have these creative dreams and are seeing some of it come to life.
And putting their money into that.
Yeah.
That's it. That means they have embraced it and they want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And just like what we did with the historic downtown with our visioning process a year and a half ago, which has been manifest in what we're seeing now. Last month, our city commission just approved the plans for Millville and St. Andrews, so you're going to see the same level of energy, and what we're doing is tying resources to that plan. The Glenwood community plan will be approved hopefully by the city commission in 2 weeks. So all 3 of these very wonderful components of our city will be rising up as well.
I know early on as well, the documentation process has been horrific. And I don't mean it to be negative, but like, it's part of what I mentioned at the beginning. I think all of us that have been through the process on the insurance side of it, either on the business side or personally, know that how detailed that has to be. And like with FEMA, even after things get, there's so much detail oriented, even after it's been approved, there's a process. I don't even understand all of it, which is part of why it's great to be able to talk about it, because like, I know there's a federal allotment, and once they make a decision that you can do it, that doesn't mean the cash is in hand.
That's right.
Then it goes to a state something. There's still federal dollars, but then it has to be released, and there's got to be documentation on all of that.
Yeah.
I also know that early on in the process, there was a ton of dreaming that had to be done and plans provided to get to that place. So I'm assuming, all that said, we've gotten through a lot of the hurdles of the actual planning side, and I think what you're saying is that some of these plans, we're actually starting to get to see them come to realization.
That's exactly right. We are, and it is a very difficult process. It's a challenging process to go through not only the insurance stuff that so many of our citizens have experienced firsthand, but then work through the federal government process as well, which has been really a challenge. Great Americans that have responded through FEMA, but it's the process and procedure that they employ, which is incredibly challenging to an efficient recovery.
Yep.
But having said that, we are moving forward. We're on the precipice of lots of projects being finally approved, major ones, and not just for the city, but all of our sister cities. And with that, I think that what we're getting ready to see is rapid reconstruction of all of our communities at large.
I've got a couple of things I want to ask you about specifically relative to projects, but I think it would be wise for me to ask you if there's probably some things you don't need to talk about now, but are there some projects that you would want to mention that you're excited about that are close to us being able to see movement on them in Panama City or in surrounding areas?
So yeah, I'm pretty transparent. I'll talk about any of the projects we want to, but I think there's a few of them that are really on the cusp of really being very good. Number one, in St. Andrews, we have the old St. Andrews Elementary School. We're moving forward on that. It's on the historic registry. It's a great community space that's going to be used for community efforts like classrooms and meeting spaces and music and art and history and culture and farmers markets and all those kinds of things. We're working on the marinas. Those are sort of the jewels of the city, and we're on the precipice of having the final approval from FEMA on those.
You said marinas plural.
Plural. St. Andrews Marina and the Panama City Marina downtown.
Okay.
So those are the two major marinas. In addition to that,
I didn't know the one in St. Andrews was going to get some work.
It's going to get an overhaul.
There'll be some folks watching this that want to know where to put their boat in. And while we're
Well,
on
they're
it, Tallgray
talking about
Park, and I don't know if they still call it that.
They do, absolutely, and I call it that too.
Well, for the longest time, it was a big sand hole, right?
It was, that's right.
And you get stuck if you tried to launch anything.
That's right.
If you hadn't been by it lately, you need to go by it because it's a place you can. If you're new to town, it's a place.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of our goals is to have 10 points of access to the bay across the perimeter of the city. That's big.
That's real big.
We want people to have access to the bay. I mean, we're called Bay County. I mean, that's one of the prizes of our community is the bay itself, and then ultimately the access to the Gulf.
Are we years away on work on those two marinas? Are we months away? Do you know?
It's. I'm hoping I am going to be weeks away from the final approval on that. And then once we have the funding in place, then we have to go through the design and the permitting. But we can at least know what we can move forward with. We'll have the funding available.
And you're saying it's in process. It's moving.
It is. It
Okay.
absolutely is. And then, of course, the Martin Luther King Recreation Center in our Glenwood community, getting that going. We're really on about to get going on some major parks down in the Cove and in Millville. So, and then lastly, in my description, but not last priority, is all of the things that we're doing in the Forest Park and over in Venetian Villa. We want the whole city to rise up. And as simultaneously, we have massive growth taking place in Panama City North with nearly 2,000 homes that are on the books to be constructed.
You know, in the last year or two, I've talked with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, business-wise, asking them about all the development and where it's coming from and the number of homes. And most of us have not thought that people could actually fill that many homes, as we've heard the numbers. I mean, they're staggering.
It's unbelievable.
But now, in the last several weeks, I'm talking to people that are saying everything we're building is being filled up. Like as quick as
it even before it even breaks ground.
Well, I'm hearing it's a several month wait on some. I mean, like they're buying them months before they're even built.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
And so that leads me to it's a positive. Like these are amazingly positive questions. And the other thing, as I was asking around, like, what would you want to hear? One is that from a real estate standpoint, the demand is so much higher than what's available. But then secondly,
and you know what happens that
prices go up.
Prices go up. That's exactly right. Not only prices go up, but also the value of those homes that people are not selling on go up as well.
Well, and some of the good news is that some of the homes that are being built are smaller homes and more affordable homes than we've had in the past.
That's exactly right.
Which is a great thing for an educator or a law enforcement person that doesn't have one of those super high paying jobs. I mean, because it is what it is.
Well, the strength of America is our teammates that work across the board, whether they're educators, law enforcement, fire department, working for municipalities, working in offices. That's what makes America great. has so many folks that are just working hard to take care of their families and do the things that they want to have.
Well, and you and I both know pre-storm there was such a shortage of that kind of housing, and so it's exciting to me to think that those hardworking folks will get opportunity in the days ahead.
So,
go ahead.
But when you look at this in the totality of the macroeconomics that's about to take place, when you look at the investment of what's taking place at Tyndall Air Force Base, the contract that Eastern Shipbuilding has, by the way, Tyndall Air Force Base, $5 billion. The Coast Guard cutters being built by Eastern Shipbuilding, that's a $4 billion contract. You have what's taking place.
We throw billion around real easy.
Billion.
That's
I mean,
a lot.
this is a lot of money. And when you start looking at this, I'm starting to add this all up. And over the next, I'm thinking 5 to 8 years, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14 billion dollars being infused of governmental dollars, not including private capital dollars that are coming in, developers that are putting their money into this. It's amazing.
All of us after the storm were wondering, like, are they still going to do these things? It seems obvious they've stayed with the Coast Guard contract and with the military side. But I just want to ask you, because some that may still be wondering, do those, even though we hear them getting closer, you're pretty confident that's going to happen?
Oh, it is. The Federal Register just codified the $4.2 billion allocation from the Congress, and that was done 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
The contract is in place with Eastern, and they're working with the Coast Guard now to do a new bid to possibly do 6 to 15 more cutters, which could be, who knows, a $25 billion contract. And this is good for our community. This is great, and it's as you indicated earlier, we have a lot of people that are coming into this community. This is a growth space. Being in the Panhandle of Florida, being in Bay County, is a choice location right now because it's blue sky, opportunities abound, and when you talk about housing and affordable housing, we have incredible housing programs that are available for down payment assistance. $25,000 to $50,000 worth of down payment assistance for a first-time home buyer. And by the way, a first-time home buyer is somebody that has not bought a house in the last 3 years. So it's not like it's the only time you've ever bought it. It's somebody has. So people who have not been in a house that they've owned for over 3 years, they're eligible.
How do they get information about that? Is that something we could link to?
Yeah, we can, and we're certainly asking everybody to do it. It's rehousebay.org is the website. That's the gateway, the portal to get in, to get the application in. And then the other part of that is we still have so many homes that have been destroyed that people were underinsured or not insured.
Okay.
And they don't have the means to fix up their homes. We can, through rehousebay.org, they can get up to $109,000 worth of owner-occupied grant money to rebuild their home. This is unprecedented. I've never seen this level of dollars available to fundamentally change housing.
I have been under the impression that your team has helped get that in place as a part of the grant, because somebody had to write the grants. That came out of the city office, right?
Well,
or was it county?
It was the city, the county, and really the state legislature. I really give a tip of the hat to Representative Trumbull, who really did a lot of great things to help get money coming in. These are state dollars, HHRP, Hurricane Housing Relief Program dollars. And that's all state money coming into it. It's like almost $50 million to be made available to all of Bay County residents to help them fundamentally change their housing condition.
I hear a lot about infrastructure. I know a lot's being done with infrastructure. This podcast is being shot here at the church, which is right on Jinks Avenue. On one side, it's being 4-lane. It's a mess, but it's looking better every day.
It is.
390's getting 6-laned, right? It's a mess, but it's getting better every day. I'm assuming, and I want you to actually say it, we haven't talked about it, but the hurricane laid enough things down that as we have had to attack infrastructure things like roads, utilities, etc., are we making progress on that moving forward?
Unbelievably, and more to come. And what you're seeing are DOT commitments and the county commitment with the half-cent surtax that was infrastructure surtax that was voted on in 2016 by all citizens here in Bay County. And so that's the dollars at work right here on Jenks Avenue, the DOT dollars on 390, as you talked about. But in the city of Panama City, we just got the notice that we're receiving $113 million toward our water and sewer lines and our lift stations. We are, a 112-year-old city. We have antiquated water and sewer lines that literally are the clay pipe. The technology for the clay pipe was exactly what was used in the Babylonian Empire. I mean, that's what's in the ground, okay? So we're replacing
That's
it.
a long time ago.
A long time ago. And so the city, we've estimated we have about a $300 million requirement to replace water and sewer lines throughout the city. And we have $170 million that we have access to right now between the state revolving fund through DEP, as well as some grant monies through because of Hurricane Michael.
I know tax things are a real hot button in some ways, but I want to ask you this. All these, it seems like the visitors that are coming to Panama City, they all help us with the tax burden. Mm-hmm. And it may be a rumor, but I'm going to start a good rumor. I had an official tell me this week that the bed tax dollars for the month of March were the record of what we've ever had.
It's amazing.
Which is incredible compared to where we were a few years back. And we wondered, could we go a different direction? Praise God, we have.
Amen.
And it matters. We're on the precipice of having like a record summer. Mm-hmm. And so all of that goes, a lot of that heads probably to the beach side, but it helps collectively. Still, there's so many people moving to Panama City.
That's right.
All the new folks coming in, they're going to help with, I guess, to some degree, as they are homeowners, etc. All of that collectively helps with the tax burden that we're facing, partly because of the storm, but just in general to do all the things we're talking about, right?
That's right. It's been said that every dollar that goes into a community circulates 7 times. So every time a new dollar comes in from one of our tourists that choose to come to the beach or anywhere in the Panhandle or in Bay County, that's going to circulate 7 times. That creates jobs for grocery store clerks and people who work in convenience stores and people who are selling T-shirts and all. It just has so much of an impact. Restaurants, hoteliers, all of that. It creates so much revitalization to the community, and it is good news for our community when the bed tax is collected, because it is an indicator of the positive outcomes of all of this work. It wasn't that many years ago, as you indicated, that we thought that the best thing for this community was the college market. That was not what was good for this community. And we saw that in previous communities like Daytona and Fort Lauderdale. Yes, and they made decisions to not market themselves toward the college community. And that clearly, what we want to have is a place where it's family friendly. And what has changed fundamentally is that it's not, we still get our college, and we want college folks to come.
Sure.
But we don't want to be the college spring break mecca. What we want to be is the place for families to come, not only spring break, but from January 1 to December 31.
Agreed.
We want people to come, and they're coming. And, we saw it even during COVID.
Yes.
During COVID, we had more people attending our hotels and condos on the beach than they had going down to Orlando. It was a big difference, because it was a drive-to market.
I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud.
I'm excited about it, and it was just amazing. And hotels were booked truly from April all the way through the end of October. 100% occupancy. Yeah. And I just say that even through the tragedy of COVID, there was still goodness that took place in our community.
Right. Well, there's so much good. Well, you and I could talk for a long time about a lot of things.
And God is faithful.
I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, because the key line is how are we? Your vision, really, the city's vision is to make Panama City the premier city in the Panhandle. Yeah. Did I get that close to right?
You got that exactly
so
right.
if I'm watching this and I'm not from Panama City and I'm thinking about moving to Panama City, or I am new to Panama City, or I've been sitting at home in my living room and hadn't seen a whole lot other than national news, give me some positive, pitch as to why we are becoming a premier city in the Panhandle.
Well, we are becoming the premier city, and it starts first with the citizens that are here. They love this community, they're committed to this community, but we're blessed in this community. We have so many natural resources with essentially centric around the water. We've got an abundance of fresh water coming through the Econfina Creek system and Deer Point Dam system. We have an amazing bay, and we have incredible access to the Gulf. Just that water, those water attributes makes this a wonderful place, but it's the people, it's the food, it's the quality of life, the enrichment of life that is so accessible. And then when you look at that in the context of job opportunities, there are immense job opportunities here. This is poised for incredible growth, incredible greatness, and I really believe that we will realize that objective to become the premier city of the Panhandle of Florida.
I love it. I love it. I'm sold.
That's it. Come on.
Listen, there's no doubt that we have challenges. It's not easy, but the future's there for the taking, and the present isn't nearly as negative as what we sometimes think it is. General, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Steve, thank you. Thank you for what you do to minister to your congregation and to this community. The Emerald Coast Fellowship has an incredible impact on this community. The youth program is unparalleled. The ministry that you're doing in terms of the leadership from the pulpit is exciting. And that's just one example of what right looks like in our community. So thank you for what you're doing and your team of teams that are so committed to pouring in. And all of the other churches. I mean, if there's one area of a burden, it's to our churches and our community that suffered such impact from the storm, because churches minister to people. Governments don't do that. That's not our role and purpose, because we don't do it right and we don't do it well. We need to get our churches back up and running, and that means we need people in the pulpits or in the pews to bypass the pulpit. But we need people to come start getting back to putting their eyes back on God.
Well, we change the focus and change the conversation. I do think, much like what you described earlier with your own personal experience, I know my priorities have changed. I mean, I'm seeing things that matter as opposed to other things with more clarity now than I ever have.
I too.
Together, hey, we're off to a great start with this podcast. Together, one conversation at a time. Between now and the next time we drop a podcast, and I hope to drop one sooner than once a month in the next little bit. But be on the lookout. Thanks again, General McQueen. Let's make Bay County brighter, one conversation at a time. Thank you for listening to our podcast today. If you were encouraged by the good news, we would ask you to subscribe through Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, as well as YouTube. If you will subscribe, all new content will come your way. You'll get notified of it, and it'll help us to brighten Bay County. Thanks, guys.